Do you watch my time-lapse videos and still wonder how it was done? Well, I'm going to break down step by step how I created this study of a three-toed box turtle to help you understand the supplies and techniques I use. Hi, I'm Hope Martin, a soft pastel artist sharing my love of nature through art. Be sure and watch till the end. I've got some extras for you to help you with this tutorial. Here are my paper supplies. I've got speedball printmaking paper, 90-pound acid-free, rather smooth. You could substitute in your favorite heavy paper. Clear gesso is what I'll be using. You could substitute pastel ground, fine pumice gel, and then to color it, I am using two things: iridescent rich gold by Liquitex heavy body acrylic and high flow acrylic. This is Golden brand in quinacridone nickel azo gold. I'm going to mix those three together and apply to the paper here. And this is a mixture of the clear gesso, heavy body acrylic, and the high flow acrylic. And I just went by feel. I don't have a ratio for you. And I'm going to use, this is a pretty stiff fan brush. And I'm going to get this on there just kind of any way I can. I don't worry too much about streaks or anything. Now, if I see any clumps, any schmutz, any acrylic boogers in there, I will remove those. But this is just get it on there. You could use a piece of foam. You could use your hands. Anything you want, just to get it on there. I don't want it too thick. I don't want heavy ridges, but I do want the paper covered and colored nicely. This will add some initial texture as well as giving it a color. I don't like working from bright white. I find it harder. I'm going to come in with a little softer brush now. It's a fan brush, but it's a little softer bristle. And I'm just going to smooth things around a bit. Get rid of some of those really deep ridges. While that paper's drying, let's talk about the colors I used in the next step. For the grid and the starting lines, I used two pastel pencils. The brands were Carbothello in a number 610, a dark brown, and then a Caran d'Arche in a light lemon yellow. I like to use two different colors for this step because it just helps me visually differentiate between the grid lines and the information lines that I'm putting down. Once I get through that, then I've got the underpainting where I use some harder pastels, Conte crayons and new pastels. In the Contes, I used 2454 or Beaster and a 2450 Sanguine. In the new pastels, I used a deep cadmium yellow. The light yellow, I'm not sure what the name was, but I think it's something like an ivory. So it's a pale, just light yellow. And then a new pastel black, and that will get me through the next two steps. To make my grid, I'm using a golden ratio caliper. This allows me to get that in there quickly without much measuring and do just the lines I need. I'm going to use the Carbothello number 610, that dark brown, to create these lines. Once that grid is done, switch over to the light lemon yellow pastel pencil and start placing Just a few key points and lines to guide you in the next step. Not too much detail here. We don't want to be a slave to this part. We just want it to use it as a guide. Right here, I'm using a little bit of kneaded eraser to clean up my lines. Once the lines are down, it's time to move on to the underpainting. I'm going to grab those Conte crayons and new pastels I laid out earlier, and starting with the darks, I'm going to start blocking in large masses, more of value than of color. Here it is after about 25 minutes worth of work. I did just a little bit of blending with some of the lighter colors into the darker color to help that. I don't want to develop the full value range here, but I want to give it a good head start. So you can see the color I've got over here. You probably saw in the other video I was switching back and forth between these two because sometimes I need to see, what am I seeing? Is this a highlight there or is that color? And it was indeed color with a little bit of a highlight, so I did put in a little bit. I'm gonna spray this down with my handy dandy bottle of isopropyl alcohol. That does not require shaking, but it's such a habit, And the next step is to cover it with clear gesso. I'm gonna be using these two brushes. I have a very stiff bristled fan brush and a softer bristled fan brush. And I'm going to use both of those to cover this. And I'm just going to squirt this on here. And I'm going to carefully start covering this up. I did get a little thick with my pastel at this point. Not too bad though, because I was using those Conte crayons and they're pretty hard, so they don't leave behind a whole lot. But the new pastels, in comparison, are quite soft. And I don't want to disturb the pigment too much. A little will happen, and that's okay. I'm not worried about that. Let's get a little more. Once I get a coat on there, I can be a little freer with my strokes, but right now, I want them very soft. A little more. Almost there. Of course, when you're doing a big painting, this takes a lot longer. But you kind of have to keep going once you start. Or well, I think you do. I've not tested that. Would be interesting, but okay. Here we are, covered with a thick brush, or the stiff brush, because it moves the pastel pigment around very quickly. Now I'm going to start gently just kind of smoothing this around, and then as it dries I will continue to just gently brush it, first one direction and then the other direction, because I want to get it as smooth as possible. And if you're not worried about that, then you could leave swirls and textures in this and really have fun with it. All right, let's talk about the colors I used for blocking in. They are all new pastels, and they are all my best guess based on little chunks of pastel with a number or two on it, and then my experience with these colors. All right, I have them all listed here with the numbers and the names. You might want to do a screen grab to make matching easier for you. I will read out the names: Ceylon Blue, Smoke Green, Light Blue, and Warm Gray, very light, almost the same shade as the paper I was using, which was newsprint. Bottle Green, Palm Green, Light Sap Green, Endive Green, Nut Brown and Burnt Sienna, Cad Yellow Deep, and Ivory. Those again are all new pastels. So let's start blocking in. Start with the background. I've got those blues and greens chosen. I think I'm going to come in with this very dark blue, and I'm just going to start roughing in these colors. My goal with the block in is to just cover everything eventually with a light layer of pigment. I'm using the side of the pastel. Not going to do any details at this point. Just blocking in the color, doing a lot of squinting. Let's try another color here. Here we are after another 30-minute session. I pulled in some more pastels, as I mentioned. Let me just show you those real quick. They were Great American Artworks. There were 4 of them in a brown and 3 of them in a yellow. I will see if I can find the names on those and put them in the printout. And then 3 Mountain Visions, a white, a black, and a gray, in addition to the Me Made Franken Pastel Stick of Mud. All right, I was able to lighten this a little bit, and I think that helps it recede a little past the top of his head. Those two were fighting with each other a little bit. And I was able to bring in his little friend here, this little ant. I was very concerned I was not going to be able to make that ant read, but let's see if I can zoom in here for you. Yeah, I think he's looking pretty good. So I will probably add just a touch more refinement on him later, but things are coming along. There's still some work to do. I've spritz it down with alcohol to settle the pigment in. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I will sharpen my pastels again. So if you're following along, take a break. When you come back or before you leave, sharpen those pastels, because the more pigment we have on here and the finer detail you want to create, the sharper those pastels, pencils, or sticks need to be to do what you want. Cover. So the next step is to start refining. Start adding more details, adding more variations in the values. One thing I've noticed is as I've worked on this, the eyes got a little funky, but I think I will be able to fix that as I go. I just need to change some of those angles. All right, let's see. I'm going to do some of it in real time so you guys can see. I will let you know what pencils I'm using, and then I will make a list as well. This is a Carbothello. It's number 610. It does not give me the name, but I can come in and start modifying these. Like, I'm noticing this line needs to come up. That should have been a little higher. These are all little things I can fix. Just little modifications. Oh, so we're going to come in with some more yellow. His beak is very yellow. This will be a combination of pencils as well as pastels. I've used pretty firm pastels up to this point to keep the accumulation down to a minimum. Here I am, 30 minutes into the refining stage. I've used a handful of pastel pencils. At this point, what I'm going to do is take a break and sharpen said pastel pencils, and then I'm also going to go into my collection of pastels and look for sticks that are in similar colors, as I'm to the point where there's enough pigment in the texture that I need something a little softer to make more refinements. So what were those pencils I just mentioned? Well, I'm glad you asked. They are all Carbothello, and I have the numbers here, but not the names. This last one is a pale gray that is the same color as the newsprint I was using, so that's why I kind of outlined it in black, but the rest of them you can see are all different shades of browns. 655, 640, 615, 610, 675, 620, 210, and then something in a very pale gray. When I went back to find colors to match those pencils, this is what I found. Most of them were Great American Artworks, or half and half, Great American Artworks and Mountain Vision. Both of those are softer pastels, the Great American Artworks being the softest. And the only reason I used both of them is because they had the colors and values I was looking for. Ended up with 3 blues here, as you can see across the top, light, medium, dark. 4 grays, a dark gray, 2 very light grays, and then 2 towards the middle. And if I squint at them, these 2 are very similar, and these 3 are very similar, but they were what matched the pencils I was using. Yellows, I had 3 very intense, and then 2 lighter values. This right here is a very dark green, and then a very pale, pale ivory. 4 different browns, and 3 of these, if you squint at them, they're very close in value. The difference is this one here on the end is a cooler gray, and these 2 are warmer grays, as is the lightest one. And then added a very dark black. Down here you can see I added a medium charcoal pencil from Faber-Castell and a white pastel pencil from Generals. I am ready for my next session. I've got my pastel pencil sharpened, and I've also added some soft pastels in blues. I've got light, medium, dark, as well as greens, also in light, medium, dark. Roughly match the harder pastels I've already got, but not quite. So I'm going to try and focus on the background a little bit in this session. Let's go. And that's a wrap on that session. I only spent about 26 or 7 minutes on it. I just kind of felt I was at a good stopping point, so don't be afraid to stop if after 15 minutes you feel like you need a break. Just do it. So I spent a lot of time in this background, but as you saw, I couldn't help myself and went and dotted, especially some of that light blue in some areas in here. I thought that just brought, the color into the turtle so he looks like he belongs there. Ended up lightening it quite a bit more, and one thing I want to point out, during this session I did not look at my reference. I purposefully put it away and just spent time with my art figuring out what it needs. Next session I will get that reference back out and see if there's any other things I can pull in to wrap this up. Getting ready to do what I think will be the last session for this study, and I'm going to focus on little details in the turtle and value changes in the background. You can see I've got my reference set up over here, and I've got the black and white copy displayed so that I can not pay attention to what the colors were, because now I can show you they're quite different now. And so I want to ignore that because I've made some design changes that I want to keep, and I want to look at just the values. So I'm going to go in and make this line sharper. Here I've kind of sketched it out a little bit and bring some of these lighter in here, but mostly working on edges within the turtle itself to bring some of those details into focus. So get your pencil sharpened. Let's do another session. Let's take a moment to step back and assess how things are looking so far. What you can see on my screen here is a color and black and white version of the study I've been doing. And what this is going to help me do is see where any values are lacking. So let me walk through what I'm seeing with mine. First off, in black and white, the texture in the background I find very annoying. It's fighting with how I want the image to present itself. That background should feel farther away, and that texture makes it feel closer. That is something I may or may not address because in the color version, that cooler color kind of helps counteract that. We'll see. Moving down here. Um, Everything else, I think just comparing the picture to itself, I'm pretty happy with. That ant presents beautifully with just a little detail. I love that. I think I want some more subtle details in that lower area where the sticks are. The way it comes to a V like that is too strong. And I think making that shorter stick thicker will help. Let's look at this in comparison. Let's compare black and white photo, black and white reference to black and white art. So here they are side by side. And yes, I think that stick bigger. Don't want it too defined, but just make this area a little bigger. Now moving up to the turtle, things I notice are these crevices are a little darker than the photo, which makes it feel a little more contoured than it is. And so those I want to address, just lightening these creases in here, making decreasing that value, this spot right here. I'm going to make that a little lighter. I think I'm going to leave this as dark as it is because that helps distinguish it from the back. Also, moving down his neck, I think this area in here could be lighter and decreasing the values between the creases and the bumps. I don't know a technical name for that, so that's what I'll call them. And the eye, bounce back up here to the eye. This is a little darker, and I may see if I can lighten that up. I know I've been playing with that darker, lighter, and I can't seem to find the sweet spot, but I may try one more time. So all of these little changes are just fine tuning. And sometimes in a study, I won't do these things because I'm going to apply them to the larger piece. But since at least right now, I don't plan on doing this larger, I may in the future. But I think I will address these things in the next half hour, maybe 2 half-hour sessions to see if I can just pull a little more dimension out of this. So you can use this trick on yours at any point in your process. Especially if you feel like you're stuck, it's just not going where you want, or if you feel it's lacking something and you can't figure out what it is, take a picture of it with your phone or whatever you've got, desaturate it, make it black and white, and then compare that to the black and white of your reference and see where are the values not where they should be. You may not need to compare it to your reference, but that will help you see through those colors, if you will, so they're not distracting you. So, because some colors, I know for me, reds read darker than they actually are. So I want to make sure if I'm using redder tones that I've got the full values represented that I need to portray that object. Changes I made after that last 30 minutes, some of them we talked about, most of them we talked about, one of them we did not. So on the left here is where I started, on the right here is where I ended up. You can see that all those little changes made quite a big impact in some places. Overall, I think the whole image has a more sunlit feel now than it did before. Let's start with the background. The texture, the underpainting, the dark underpainting is showing through less, which in this case I think helps. It doesn't fight so much for attention now. It helps it to recede into the background where it needs to be. The one change I made that we didn't talk about was to make this shadow here a little lighter. Um, what that does is also helps it recede, and then these cast shadows from the turtle right here are visibly darker, so it separates them a little bit, adds a little more detail without really adding detail, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how else to explain it. The sticks that he's crawling over, varying the width, I think really helps so that it reads now as a pile of sticks and not some strange structure that is perhaps carrying him. I don't know. That's the things that my brain was putting out there. Going, what is that? But, so that's been solved. I am also added a little bluer tint in there. Again, cool colors are going to recede the folds in his face up here, now a little lighter than they were before. That helps it to read as just slight folds and not deep, dense. Made that spot there a little lighter. And that was really it overall, just massaging those values, addressing some of the little alignment issues that overall gave a big impact. And I'm very happy with this now. I went ahead and signed it. I highly encourage you to sign all your pieces. They are evidence of your hard work and attention and deserve your signature. And here we are to the bonus content portion of this tutorial. I have available for you a PDF of the reference I used to create this in the tutorial. The PDF has 3 pages. We've got the color, the black and white, and the grid. I will put a link to these in the description and down in the comments below. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment and I will get right back to you. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. It is the first in what I hope will be a long series of them, but I need your help to get to that point. Check out my Patreon link in the description. When I reach $100 per month in Patreon, I will make this a regular part of my Patreon offering. In addition to the reference, here we go. In addition to the reference, I will also have PDFs of the palette that I used and snapshots of each step in the process available as well. So you have all of these things to help you follow along and create your next masterpiece. So there you have it. The tutorial is done. I hope you enjoyed it and I will see you soon. Later.